So maybe I'll start with a personal story of Lisa, of me. So I was super fortunate in life that I came across this subject very young. And the first time I heard this subject, I heard it in art and music when I was a teenager, but the first time I heard it named was in Buddhism. But I could hear it in music. I could hear it in art. I could hear it in when I was laughing or having fun. And then the first time I heard it named was in Buddhism, and I fell in love with Buddhism as soon as they spoke it. And the way they spoke about it was being in the moment. You have to be present. And they spoke about it like it was you had to do that. But even in that, even in them saying it's about the moment, it's about presence, it's about you being present, this is the freedom, what is the freedom. As soon as they said that, I knew what they were talking about. It was like I could taste love in it. Literally, I could taste the love of that. And I fell in love with the subject instantly. And I just knew there was something in it that I had to follow. And when I got involved in the Buddhist group, they talked a lot about the end of craving. So the end of craving, in my language, would be the end of seeking. And they almost made it sound like you had to stop having pleasure and stop having pain. Or maybe it wasn't they made it sound like that, but my interpretation was that I had to stop experiencing pleasure. So what I did for quite a few years was I cut off all those places in where I heard this message, because I thought my seeking for it was wrong. So I stopped listening to music, I stopped watching romantic movies, I stopped doing things that I loved, because I thought that was illusion. I didn't realize at the time that I was actually hearing it in those things. I was remembering myself in those things. I didn't know that. And then something happened in the Buddhist group where I got angry with doing that, where I wanted to listen to music, where I wanted to do all these pleasurable things that I'd done before. And then I realized that I'd been mistaken, that it wasn't about stopping doing these things. It was the end of the belief that it was actually in those things. That it was actually in me all the time. It's just those were the things in the world which were like signposts that were saying, here I am, here it is, but it wasn't actually in those things. So that love that I was seeking when I listened to music, or through a romantic film, or through a perfect piece of art or literature, it wasn't actually in those things. It was actually when I listened to those things, I remembered myself. So when they say it's the end of craving, it's not the end of doing all the things. It's not the end of the pleasure and the pain. It's the end in the belief that something in the world will give you what you look for. That what you look for is yourself. And I was just hearing myself in that. Then after that was a big shift. And then there were other awakenings. And then I remember this time, there was many times, but this is the one that springs to mind, where I was sitting in my hot tub. And I used to sit in my hot tub and I had my ball thrower for my dogs. I had 2 dogs, but the neighbours' dogs used to come, so 4 dogs. And I would sit in the hot tub, and they would come and they would bring the ball back and drop it in the hot tub. And I wouldn't move, the bubbles would bring it around to me. And then I'd pick the ball up, and then I'd pop it in the ball thrower, and then poof! And then they would go again. And it was so much fun for me, I could do it for hours, because when they brought the ball back, one dog's head would pop up, drop the ball in, and then 3 other dogs' heads would pop up. And I'd just see 3 heads like, and this was so funny to me and sweet. And then I just had this moment, and there was many moments prior to that, where I knew that their looking was the same looking as mine. I just knew that that which was looking at me, sitting naked in my hot tub with the ball thrower, was the same as me that was looking at these 4 heads, looking at me. I knew it was all the same. And there was a sense in that moment of there wasn't any distance between us, that we were so close. It was the same everywhere. And then there were many other moments. I just explained them because it helps you to see it in yourself. It's not really you that sees it, but it helps clear what's not true. I know it's super confusing, this language, because I'm kind of speaking personally as if it's you that wakes up, but it's not you that wakes up. And then there were many other experiences. There was another experience which I've talked about a lot, where I was in India with my boyfriend at the time, Roger, and I'd been listening to lots of satsangs, and I was laying in bed, and I don't know if I fell asleep or I didn't fall asleep, but what happened was everything disappeared. There was nothing left. There was no room, there was no objects, there was no sounds, there was no me that was aware of the sounds, there was no sights, there was no sensory perception, but there was consciousness of it all and a sense of being. And there was nothing there. And this could have lasted forever. I couldn't have thought about it. I couldn't think, gosh, this is boring. When am I going to come back and something's going to happen? Because there was no thinking. There wasn't any ability to recognize it. It was just happening. There was just this live, conscious presence, aware of nothing, not a thing. And that could have gone on forever. For billions and billions of years, I could have been laid there. There wasn't anything that was registering time. And then finally a thought popped in. So out of nowhere, a thought popped in and said, this is what they talk about. And then another thought popped in and said, but if they talk about it, who are they talking it to? Like, who am I? Like, who are they talking it to? And then, like a domino effect, the whole life of Lisa appeared. Like, tuk, 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 tuk. Like all my experiences as Lisa. Like everything all different memories of when I was a child, things that have happened to me, of things I loved, sad things, happy things. And then feelings of Lisa began to arise, and my emotions of Lisa. Then things in the room began to appear. So the table, then the sounds, the bed, then the sounds began to appear, the doo-doo of the rickshaw drivers, the sounds of birds. And then the body of me, of Lisa, began to arise. And that was really clear after that. There was no more confusion. There was still suffering after that, or what I'd call identification with the personality, but there was no longer any doubt of who came first, the consciousness or Lisa. Like it was so clear that who I was prior to Lisa, that there was something prior to me, that could be there, and there didn't need to be any memory, any sensation, any idea, that could be there, and there could be no sense of Lisa, that was the first thing that came into existence, and that could even function without Lisa. And no matter how much I listened to people speak about this subject, I could never have imagined that. I could never have thought about that. This is a very, in a way, personal experience. Like, it's not something that you can be shown or taught. It's something that you are. It's just that the attention gets focused on thoughts and ideas and the world, and there's a forgetting of what came first. That is prior to the person, the ideas, the feelings, the sensations, the stories. What most people walk around with is identification with the person. That you are a story walking in time, and you're in relationship to a world that's external to you, and that you're inside the body, and that you are your feelings, you are your emotions, you are your name, your memory, and you have 80 years of life, roughly, if you're lucky. And that you were born and that you're going to die. And most of society and humanity believes that about themselves. But that's not who you are. There's something that was there prior to all that and is there all the time. All the time. Even in deep sleep. Although that's a very complicated subject, deep sleep. Even prior to this body being born. And after this body dies. The problem is that your brain only remembers this life. So you only remember roughly from 2 or 3 years old. So you can't remember being alive before that. Because your brain only functions as a memory for when this body grew. Sometimes people can have past life memories. And really everything that you do and are on the human level has come from the past, from your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, from the dinosaurs. It's information that has gone through apparent time. But none of that is who you are. That's something that moves in who you are. So who are you? So I would say you are this alive presence. And this alive presence is a total mystery. And it's something that cannot be named by anybody. It's prior to words. Words arise in it. So right now, which is all we ever have, is what's happening. There are two qualities which are actually not qualities, but we're going to call them qualities because I've got to name them something. Two qualities that are always here. And I will name them consciousness and the sense of I am. They're not personal consciousness. Earlier we were using not personal awareness, we were using that personal awareness. I'm talking about something that knows all of it. So, right now, prior to naming this sofa, there is a recognition of this sofa. You didn't need to think about this sofa. You needed to think about it in order to name it. So you need to think this is a sofa, to name it. But prior to naming it, the sofa was here and it was a mystery, but it was recognized. There was something that was conscious of it. without any effort. It's the same with the wall behind me. The wall behind me, the wood, is appearing, and there is a consciousness of it, and you don't need to think about that. It just happens naturally, instantly, without time. The same with this room and the other people making sounds, moving, the wind blowing. There is a conscious recognition of it that isn't anyone's effort. It happens instantly. And you don't do it, it happens. You don't put any effort into being conscious. It's happening. It is. There is consciousness, and that you didn't do anything to be conscious. It was your birthright. You've always had the ability to be conscious. So that wind now, most probably all of us can hear that. And maybe you're focusing on my voice, but it's appearing in consciousness. When we name it, we begin to think about it. And again, there is consciousness of that thinking. So the wind blows. There is a knowing of it, an instant recognition that has no distance, has no time. And then we name it and it goes into time. That is wind, and we like the wind. The wind is invisible, but yet it moves things, and then it begins to go into time. As humans, we're lost in the timeline, always in the timeline. We've forgotten about this conscious recognition of all things. Now, this conscious recognition, this big consciousness, has nothing to do with the personal awareness. So we can also move this personal awareness. So right now, you can put the personal awareness on the wind. You can put it on my voice. You can put it on your big toe. You can put it on thinking. And there's something that's conscious of that. Now, what can happen in awakening is that thinking personal awareness can sort of, they say in traditional Advaita, it's like that personal awareness turns around and looks at the big consciousness. But obviously that can't be the way it is, but that's maybe a good image. It helps relax the person. It's like, oh, well, we're doing something, we're getting somewhere. Happy with that. But that's what they kind of say. Obviously, it can't really do that. But it's like on the personal level, I'm kind of giving you information, and there's some sort of recognition on the personal level. But notice that recognition on the personal level is again appearing in consciousness without any effort. There is something that recognizes that instantly, without distance, without time, always. It's always recognizing it. It's recognized. You didn't need to think about that. That sound was just recorded, was known. Maybe recorded is the wrong word because it implies time again, but it just was known right here. Okay. So this is the time where it'd be fantastic if I had a PowerPoint, if I'm just sat here and behind me there's a projector and I'm like, boop, 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 boom, and there's a picture of it, like a diagram of how the consciousness comes first. So there's a way in which people traditionally, or whatever you want to call it, draw it. So they say the consciousness comes first, and the consciousness, so they normally have a picture of the consciousness, and then they have the picture of an I am, and then they have the picture of that I am and consciousness looking through a body. I think some people draw it differently, though. Some people put the body and then the I am. Doesn't matter, really. So this consciousness, you could say, is looking through the bodies, but it's not really looking through the bodies. But we can say that just for an image in your imagination so you can get a sense of it. So you could say this consciousness is looking through the bodies and it's conscious of all things. So sometimes people like to imagine that the consciousness is behind, but it's actually everywhere in everything. So this consciousness is looking through the body, and the body, you could say, is like what's those things called? I can only think. Sorry? VR, yeah, the virtual reality consoles. So you could say like the body is like a virtual reality console that's put on, but it doesn't just have the visuals, it also has all the feelings and emotions. So you could say this VR that you put on is not only the vision, it's also the feeling on your fingertips, it's also the emotions in the body, the sensations on the legs. It gives you the all in one package. It doesn't just give you the sight, it gives you all the feelings of being human. So you've got consciousness. So consciousness is not something you can imagine, but let's just imagine it as something. And then on consciousness, you put on this VR system of a body. So these bodies are VRs. These bodies don't experience, they're not alive. I know it feels like, wow, this body is alive, but actually scientists can't find the moment in which the body dies. Like they can't find what death and life is. They don't know what being alive on a cellular level is and dying on a cellular level is. Like we can obviously say the brain stopped working or the heart stopped breathing, but on the cell level, they don't know what life and death is, which is quite amazing. Considering we have a whole society based on these ideas of being born and dying, we don't know what it is. So you can imagine that consciousness puts on this VR, and this VR is our bodies. And it looks through these bodies, and it experiences life as these bodies. And it experiences the world through these bodies. Because these bodies, or this VR system, becomes the projection of the whole world. So you know when you put on a virtual reality system, if you've never done it before, I'd really recommend going and doing it. You don't just see through the character's eyes, you also see the whole world. So these VR machines, they also project the world. So this body projects the size of the room, it projects the sounds in the room, it projects distance, it projects all of it. It sees everything in its way of seeing colours, forms. Different bodies will see the world completely differently. A dog will see this completely differently. A bee will see this completely differently. There isn't a fixed reality out there. There's the ways in which the bodies interpret this reality, which is, again, a very strange idea, considering we, as humans, think that the world and talk as if the world is fixed and we are fixed. But actually it's different dependent on who looks at it, which, again, science is coming up against, and the quantum physics begins to challenge this idea. So we put on these VR machines and we look through these humans at this world. And then what happens after a couple of years of life is this functioning begins to appear that says, I am the body. I am somebody inside the body. This story begins to appear in the VR machine, repeating, I'm someone inside the body. And the body, over time, begins to feel like it's somebody inside the body moving through time and that it's alive. And it forgets that there was this empty looking, this consciousness prior to the body. It just gets so fixated on itself. Me. And it gets fixated on trying to make the me, the person, feel good. And the more that it leaves consciousness, the more that it goes into time and believes in the illusion, the more uncomfortable it feels, because it's out of line with reality. It's like you're living a lie. You know, when you tell a lie, it feels uncomfortable, not for all people, but for most people. You know, when you lie, it's like, I mean, all of us do it, we can't help it, but it's not the most comfortable feeling. It feels a bit uncomfortable, and you're a bit conscious of that. Well, imagine the whole lie of you. The more and more you invest in this life, the more that the body hurts. So then that person thinks, well, the reason that I'm unhappy and I'm uncomfortable is because I haven't got enough things. I have to have more things. Then I will feel comfortable. So then it just keeps investing in buying, obtaining, and getting things. Things are nice. I'm not saying don't enjoy things. We like things. Just like magpies like colour, we like things. But you're not actually going to find your home, your freedom in these things. You just will get more things, and you'll have to move these things from one place to another place, and then another place, and then back to the original place. They won't actually complete you. They will be enjoyable to an extent. But what will actually complete you is remembering who you are. Who you are. Which is this moment. Which is this conscious presence. Which is this. This is actually home. It's all you've ever looked for. But this consciousness is not alone. It's not dead as just consciousness. There's another quality which is always present. And this is the I am. So when I'm generally saying presence, I'm meaning consciousness and I am. When I say consciousness, I tend to just mean the consciousness. So this I am is I think of it as the everything side of life. It's like the love side. I think that in some areas of Hinduism, they define Shiva as the consciousness and Kali as the I am. And Kali, Shiva's meant to represent the stillness, so this conscious presence, and Kali is meant to represent, I think, the dance of life. Like this aliveness, the life. Like the woman or the feminine is more often represented of giving life, of things happening. And sometimes I always say I think because I have a terrible memory and I'm not sure if I can remember these things accurately or if I'm making them up. So just know that I'm saying I think, and if you really want to go and quote it to someone, first look it up on Google. I think that Kali dances on Shiva's lap. Like Kali is the dance of life. She's like the wildness. She dances on his lap, and Shiva sits there still. The masculine sits there still. And these two have to go together. Some people say that consciousness is first, but as also an equally feminine teacher who's for equal rights, I would say that the I am and the consciousness are equal. Some people say consciousness is first, prior to life, but I think that they are hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So the I am and the consciousness go together. And you find the stillness in life, and you find the life in stillness together. Some people describe I am as a quality of love. And again, there's lots of arguments about that. And whether it's a quality or not a quality, I don't really care, but it's definitely love. So some people say the consciousness is wisdom, the emptiness is wisdom, and the I am is love. I would agree with that. I think that's beautiful. But again, it's only words. It's not really the truth, and we don't really need to fight about it, but it's nice what it does to us on the human level to think about these things. And it's very important for these two to be together. For the consciousness to be there without the I am, the human will be cold. For the I am to be there without the consciousness, the human will be manic. It will have no grounding. Like you must have met along the spiritual path people that have had the I am awakening, and they're just totally, like crazy with love. They want to make love to everything. They want to tell you how much they love you. Huge amounts of sexuality. And then the other part sort of grounds it more. You must have met them if you've been to India and been on the Indian spiritual path. You'll see people totally blissed out with the love side of things, and you'll see they're totally ungrounded. They're doing all sorts of crazy things. That's beautiful as well. But you could see why it would be said it's without wisdom. And then you seem to get schools which veer one side to the other side, some that are more in the loving side, some that are more in the wisdom side. And they say this one's right and that one's right. And I think it's whatever resonates. It doesn't really matter. Everyone's always going to believe they're right. That's the way we are. Unless we're feeling insecure and then we believe we're wrong. And then when we're eating dinner, we don't think we're right or wrong. We're just like, oh. So the most interesting thing about this consciousness and the I am is that they're always here. We tend to think in our imagination of time being split. So we tend to think of it almost like a film reel. The old-fashioned film reels, like that we have this time, and that when we walk out of the room, this is an end of a moment, and when we go into another room, that's a new moment. And then when we do something else, that's a different moment. And so we can understand why we say that on the thinking, communicative level. That's wise, that this is a new time or a different time. We're trying to distinguish between what's happened and what's going to happen and what's currently happening. But on the consciousness and the I am level, there is no break in time. There isn't this line that's cutting the moment. The moment always is. You never have a beginning of consciousness in the I am and an end. So you might think that you leave this room and you've left this particular experience. You've left this on the form level, like you've left us sitting, talking amongst like this, and this particular experience as it is like this, but you haven't actually left the big moment. You haven't left consciousness. Consciousness doesn't end as this experience ends and begins again in the next moment. It's never ending. This moment is the same moment that's existed since the beginning of this universe. Isn't that cool? So this is the same moment where the dinosaurs lived. This is the same moment where the, I forgot the name of them, Neanderthals lived. It's the same moment where there was no human life or animal life, where there was just fish in the sea. And this will be the same moment when 1,000,000 years have passed and we've morphed into a whole new being. We're no longer recognizable as these current humans. We're morphed into something completely different. If we wipe humans out, it's the same moment. If we all die as humans, it's the same moment. So that's really a big thing to say, because that means that what I'm saying is who you are is this moment, who you are is consciousness in the I am, and that never dies. So I'm also saying that you will always exist. Who you truly are will always exist. Your form will change, just like all forms change. So who you are isn't born and doesn't die. Who you are wasn't born on June the 12th, 1980. Or any date that your birth date is. This body came out of the womb at that time. But this, even on the human level, that's not the beginning of the body. So your freedom arises here. What you look for is here. What you've always wanted is here. It's in the eternal. And the eternal is right here. It's not found in conquering life, because ultimately you won't be able to do that. And this is where the lie doesn't work, because you know that. You know that you can't, on the human level, conquer life. And because you're so invested in it, you fear that moment of death, that moment of realizing you're dying, of letting go of your loved ones, of your friends, of your environment. Of your life. And that follows you around like your shadow follows you around. Just like when you lie too much to people, it follows you around. You get yourself in a sticky situation and it builds up the tension. It's the same thing. You keep lying to yourself about who you are, it follows you around and haunts you. It might give you certain payoffs because you believe you can control this and own things for a while, and you can live in some sort of belief that you on the human level own this life. But it just doesn't last. The leaks in the boat keep coming in. Somebody gets ill. You lose something. Something changes. Your society decides to change, which changes your living circumstance. This is all you have. The silence of this. This. So we can talk more in other sessions. This afternoon we can do questions and answers. So if there was any confusion on this talk, we can talk about it more this afternoon. But we can talk more about what that means on the human level. Because normally when you say this, that this is your home and this is your freedom, the human then begins to worry of how it deals with time, how it deals with other people, how it deals with wanting certain things, how it deals with work, with money, lovers. And it wants the answers of how to deal with that, because if you're here, then you're not dealing with it and you're frightened that it's going to become a tidal wave that knocks you over further down the road. So just let all the feelings arise in your body. So just let whatever's come up, come up. Because it's right here, it's what we've got. So this is what's happening. So if your body's really uncomfortable, you might try to escape it in thinking, but this is what you actually have. And this is where your freedom is. As this becomes more clear, the body will become more comfortable and more balanced because there won't be the lie happening. The lie is what creates the discomfort. But as you begin to hear this, there has to be a facing a certain amount of discomfort in order to let the body settle down. So just let your body hurt if it's hurting. I can tell that there's a certain degree of discomfort in the room from all the fidgeting. Everyone's not going to fidget now, they're like, oh. But it's okay, it's not that anyone's doing it wrong. The reason you're fidgeting so much is because your body is sore. That could be a physical ailment, because you've got a physical discomfort, and also our bodies can't sit in the same position for too long. But I can tell that there's also an extra bit of movement, which is just an agitation with being still, with hearing us. And it's 100% allowed to feel uncomfortable. There's nothing to be afraid of. You've not done anything wrong. This isn't a sign that there's something that you or I have done wrong. It's just the effect of lying to yourself for so many years. So here we are. Consciousness is recognizing what's happening. It's already here, it's already happening. So we're coming to an end now. We can all stretch our bodies. Thank you.